right, everybody. Hey, Grant here with another great gutter growth podcast for you. Today, I've got Michael Gogan. Did I pronounce that right?
You nailed it.
All right, with HireBus. So we're really excited to have partnered with them. They're going to be at the Gutter Summit this year, so come check them out. And Brandon's going to be speaking. Michael, I know you're going to also bless us, I think, with the day, right?
Yep, I'm going to be there at least for the first day. We might have some logistics to juggle for sure, though. I'll be there the first day.
Going to be so exciting. But, man, I'm just honored to have you on today. And let's get right into it for the listeners. Talk to us about what's the story behind HireBus and what was the problem that you were trying to solve when it was launched?
Yeah, so great question. So I joined HireBus about 4 months ago. So HireBus was already in existence when I joined. And I think the kind of, creation of HireBus and like how it came about was what really led me to join HireBus. I was at Company Cam for 7+ years, and I saw so many similarities to how Company Cam came about. Roofing contractor had issues with job site documentation, said, I got to go solve this. I'm going to create something. And obviously a lot of people are familiar with where Company Cam is today. Mm-hmm. And very similar story for HireBus. Brandon, our CEO, he owns a concrete coatings franchise. So he's got about 40 locations across the country. And hiring is just, it is a chore. It's really difficult, especially in the blue collar trades.
Yes.
And so, he was like, there's got to be a better way. And if you think about it, there's LinkedIn for the business professionals. There's, Indeed for some of those. And don't get me wrong, we use Indeed, we use ZipRecruiter, we use LinkedIn. So you're going to be able to win on those boards. But there's really not that spot where you're like, that's where I'm going to go get my blue collar sales reps, to go get my blue collar installers. And so Brandon said there's got to be something. And so one thing led to another, and he created HireBus to help, for his business. And then once he was able to show, hey, this works, then we've taken it now to everyone.
Before I really have you kind of specify what it is, and we'll get into that, what is it that makes hiring in the trades, or the home service businesses, it's kind of all in one, right? I wouldn't say so impossible, but just so different and so broken compared to maybe like the corporate world.
Yeah. So
difficult.
And I'm going to hit you with the truth bomb here, Grant. And this isn't the only reason it's difficult, but most blue collar contractors start working in their business, and a lot of them still are on the tools and on the trucks.
Yep.
And so when you think about it that way, when you're in the business, on the roof, doing whatever, you're not putting a strategic plan for hiring in place. And that's where you start. That's what the process starts as, because that's where you start, is on the tools. And unfortunately, you hire when it's necessary, when there's a fire, when you're in desperate times. And so one of the biggest reasons when I talk to contractors, they're like, it's so hard. And I say, yeah, it is, because you waited until it was too late to go and hire. And then what happens? That warm body looks a heck of a lot more attractive when I don't have anybody to go run the appointments than if I were 2 months in advance. And I said, oh, well, I don't have a problem right now. I don't have a fire to put out.
Yep.
I'm going to be proactively looking for a sales rep, or I'm going to proactively look for somebody that I can level up into, owning their own or running their own, in this case, gutter crew, whatever it is. And so I think that's one of the biggest things is we are in this reactive state. And I'll be the first to admit, before I got into the home service technology space, I owned a donut company here locally in Lincoln, Nebraska. And I can tell you all my bad hires happened because I didn't have anyone to flip the donuts that night. I didn't have anyone deliver the donuts in the morning. I didn't have anyone that could make the coffee. It's like, well, you showed up for an interview. Can you show up tomorrow morning to work, type of thing?
Yeah.
And so I'm guilty of it too. We all are. When we're working in the business, We don't build that, we don't build that structure to where we're like, oh, let me proactively start hiring.
What if 3 days could unlock the growth your gutter business needs to dominate your market? Gutter Summit 2025 is not another conference. It's your shortcut to the exact strategies and tactics real contractors use to scale aggressively. Get inside the minds of industry titans, hands-on breakout sessions, and high-impact networking designed to fast-track your growth. Not only will you get an exclusive behind-the-scenes tour of Spectra and hands-on product training, we're also giving away over $200,000 worth of prizes, goods, and services, including 2 gutter machines, one featuring new tech and one Spartan model. On top of that, VIP ticket holders gain access to private bourbon tastings, premium cigars, and next-level networking conversations that turn into 6-figure deals. We're limiting this summit to just 260 hungry contractors. Once we're sold out, we'll unfortunately have to stop all sales and start a wait list for the following year, so time is of the essence. And the longer you wait, the more you'll pay. Ticket prices will rise each month leading up to the event. Gutter Summit, Atlanta, Georgia, at the beautiful Georgian Terrace Hotel. Practical tactics, proven growth, unparalleled value. Your next level breakthrough starts here. Reserve your spot right now at guttersummit.com because winning businesses take action. We can't wait to see you in September at Gutter Summit 2025, where together we move mountains.
Hiring, so that instead of it being a fire, I'm saying, oh, I've got the sales rep ready to run these leads.
Yeah, for sure. I'm in that position right now with Mother's Gutters, and I shouldn't say necessarily I'm in it. My wife's in it as the general manager, and of course I support her in that. But we are in this where, we're trying to be leaders in the industry, and we are. And here's a perfect predicament. Because of the model that we're doing in Mother's Gutters, which is start up with basically zero cash, we aren't running an in-house crew, right? We're subbing out, and we're essentially partnered with somebody that's in our gutter growth program. So we're helping them, they're helping us. And we're able to be very selective in that particular sub model because this gentleman knows exactly what I want. We've worked together before. I wouldn't feel so comfortable. But here we are, knowing that eventually we're going to buy a machine, a truck, a trailer, and I need an employee. And 5 years ago, or people that I speak with all the time, would wait to look for that employee, right? Well, we're probably not going to have a truck and a trailer for 6 months. Let's put off the hiring process until we've got something tangible. I know better than that. And so I've got an ad going out right now. Although I'm not ready, technically, I had better start to get ready. And what better way to do that than to utilize a system or a company like HireBus, or just having it top of mind. And then, like you hit the nail on the head, we always hire the day before. And there's so many things that happen and can go wrong and do. One of them just being typically not proper onboarding when we hire last minute. That's not the topic of our conversation today, but it's a huge win if we can keep that top of mind. If we don't hire last minute, we will onboard properly, which will set a whole bunch of circumstances to either go right or wrong, right?
Absolutely. Well, and yeah, no, that is such a great point, Grant. And I think the worst possible thing that can happen is for you as a business owner in the blue collar trades to not have a hiring process and to hit a home run on your first swing. There is nothing worse that can happen. And I'm not wishing failure on anyone, obviously, but
the truth.
If I miss on that first one, that tells me I need to go back and reevaluate and we need to fix this. But if I luck into post the ad on a Monday, have somebody hired on Friday, and I've got them, coming in to start training on Monday, if I luck into that and that person actually wins for me, well, then in my brain, I say, this is easy. I can do this. I post it on Monday. I'll have somebody great by Friday. Yeah. The reality is, like you said, it takes potentially months to go and get that right person because the market is extremely competitive right now. I want to say I saw a stat that there's 400,000 potential blue collar trade jobs open at any given time.
Yeah. And if you are working, like you said, on the business, not in the business, and we'll just use the Mother's Gutter scenario. If I start hiring today for 6 months from now, We talk about we're going to build some rapport with some people. I might find an all-star who's slightly looking to make a move. He's not ready, but he's still employed. So we can start to talk, right? And I can start to court him per se, build a relationship. We don't have to do it on first off. But the second thing is, like you said, the market is so saturated with people that truthfully that do want to work. There's a lot of people that want to work, but their expectations are extremely high. And that's understandable. The cost of butter is $10 a box. Groceries, gas, eggs, rent, insurance, all these life costs are so high. So I want to set myself up to have a different opportunity than all these other people that are hiring. And we've created some stuff to make ourselves stand out. I want to dive into that part of the conversation. You guys have a program called or is it, I don't know if it's called a program, but it's the right seat assessment.
Yep, absolutely. So
tell us all about this.
Yeah, for sure. So our right seat assessment, it kind of lives in the middle of the hiring pipeline, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
the front end of the pipeline, you've got the job ads, the job description, the job title, how it's compensated, all that stuff. And then you've got your standard, just what we call it your ideal candidate persona or ideal candidate blueprint. And we build that with our clients. And then the next step, that's where we inject our right seat assessment into the process. But everything we do is built before and after that is predicated on thinking through like the right seat assessment. And ultimately, our goal is when we partnered with a company that has this traits-based assessment, they've been doing it for 30 years. We said, we want to make that, but we want to make it specific to the blue collar trades.
Okay.
We know the trades. And so it's a 21-point traits-based assessment.
Yeah.
And we go and we benchmark the different roles. So, and we're spitting those scores out for you as the business owner. Inside sales, outside sales, production manager, labor, lead tech. Obviously lead tech's more of the HVAC space. Like you don't have a lead tech, but you would have a production manager, a team lead.
We have lead techs in the gutter space who run the truck. Very similar to the
So it's kind of just semantics in a lot of them, where a lot of them are like the crew leader or the truck manager, whatever it is. But we're spitting those scores out, and our ultimate goal is that we're getting you people on the final interview that would be in the right seat. And so now instead of interviewing 15 people, 12 of which probably wouldn't be the right seat or right fit anyway, we're going to get you 3 people to interview, all of which we feel very confident because of that assessment. They're going to be then right seat people. And then you more or less are saying, hey, which one of these people is going to fit my culture the best? Which one of these 3 rock stars do I like the best? And then there it is. And so, and that right seat assessment is, it's powerful for people that aren't even hiring. Like you can come in and you can have your entire team take that right seat assessment. And I always caution people, don't have them take that so that you can say, okay, I'm going to completely change up the roles of everybody. That's not what we're saying. But you can see like, hey, where does Grant fit best? What are Grant's, what are his superpower traits? And you can also compare Grant to Michael, and we can see, where are we the same? Where are we different? Where should we be aware that maybe we both are very, very high in terms of endurance and we just go, go, go. Well, we could lead each other to burning out if we're not aware of that. So just
exactly.
all sorts of ways that you can, leverage those traits to make your business more successful.
I don't want to detract from that. I feel like I could talk for hours about this, but I don't want to keep you that long. Because hiring is something I take a lot of pride in. It's one of my better attributes in the home service industry outside of some of my technical knowledge, strictly in gutters. That's all I've been in. And I have designed this thing within our gutter growth program that it's called Right Foot Forward. And I hope that we align on this because we didn't talk about it, but I'm really curious you and your company's perspective on this specific thing to just give us a good talking point for today, and I'll get right to it. It is, unless absolutely necessary, I don't love owners doing hiring. And I think that even in that, absolutely necessary situation, it still isn't necessarily necessary. Only time it's necessary is if you're literally like the owner and you have no other employees, or maybe only one. So what I mean by that is, we'll take a smaller company. You're the owner and maybe you have 5 employees. You should be working on the business, maybe, and you're still partly in it, by getting your best employee to be involved in these interactions, picking and choosing employees. Now, they have to have some training in it, but let's start sooner than later, because I have found through my own interviewing and working for lots of companies around the United States, and me hiring, thousands of people at different companies, that when the owner's like, well, here's what I offer, here's how I pay, here's what I have to give you, versus another employee, whether it's a manager, right? As you get bigger companies, obviously the general managers or assistant managers do the hiring. We're talking in a lot of more of the smaller mom and pop, like 5 or 6 employees or less, maybe 10 or less. I see it's always the owner in there with his legs crossed, making all the decisions about who's coming in. And I've found that when we involve another employee, probably pre-hiring manager, that's a great beginner role, is to either have him with you or her, or let them do it. Because with the Right Foot Forward program, which is separate, I would, if I'm hiring you, Michael, I'm going to tell you all about why this company is great, and it's not coming from the owner. Well, my company's so good, we do this. It's somebody else kind of co-signing. Man, here's why I love to work here. And I'd love to bring you on if you would align with what us as a team are aligned with. Talk to me a little bit about if you guys speak on that at all, or you teach on it, or your program has any insight on that, getting the owner out of the hiring process. Because again, long conversation after it, but
Yep.
There's a lot of perks to that.
I completely agree. And I think it's obviously, like you said, it's situational. And so we're going to have listeners right now saying, Grant, that's not possible.
So this is what I found.
Okay, so you're telling me my clogged gutters caused all this? I had no idea.
Yeah, unfortunately, most homeowners don't think about their gutters until this kind of stuff happens.
Wow.
Prevent unexpected and costly damage from clogged gutters. Protect your home with One Gutter Guard, the trusted solution for gutter protection. Call us today to find out why more homeowners are choosing One Gutter Guard.
Well, I've got 3 employees and myself, and it's not possible. But what is always possible, unless it's just an owner operator, is, like you said, you could have some sort of interaction. So even if you don't fully remove that owner out, but having somebody else interacting there, I think is super important and extremely valuable. Like you said, a couple things. One, they know what it's like to work for Grant.
Yes.
Like, I mean, what better answer than, hey, I loved that person, Grant. I don't know if they can work for you.
Yes.
And I've never worked for you, so I don't know
but no, that's what you want. I don't know that this person could make it on the team because of your expectations. And that could lead to a whole nother. That's what I'm saying. This could be a massive. It could lead to like, oh, do I need to change? Or, hey, boss, we love the expectations. We only want people here that are committed. Let us help you find committed people through sharing our commitment.
Yep.
It's a big
so, yeah, so that one's, I think, huge. The other piece that's important too is like maybe you have, maybe it's when I was at Company Cam and before I even got into the tech space, when I was doing the education world, a lot of our interviews would be three people from the team that would be interviewing this person, and we would just kind of round robin the questions.
Oh,
this is just a nugget for you.
Yeah.
If you do something like that, let the applicant ask a question too. If you're going to round robin questions through, let them be part of the round robin, ask a question back to you. So that's just a nugget for you. Let them involve them in the question process. But, maybe you have 2 or 3 people from your team. Maybe it's your office manager, maybe it's a salesperson and one other person, and they're going to round robin interview this person. And like you said, they are going to be talking about what it's like to work there. They're going to talk about the culture. They're going to ask questions like that. I don't want to plug HireBus too much.
Plug it.
But we have AI interview questions that you can leverage for this as well. So like when you're talking about, they need some training, they need some coaching on interviewing, we have some of that already built for anybody that's doing the interview. And so I would say absolutely. And then for that person that says, I want to make sure that, because what better way to get their stamp of approval before you even hire them? So in 6 months when they're like, Grant, John over here just not cutting the mustard. And it was like, well, let's level him up. Let's coach him up. But remember, you signed off on John. Like we were in this decision together. And so I think based on size, you could do that where you kind of have peer interviews. What we would call that is like kind of a peer or colleague interview. And then maybe they do have a final interview with a hiring manager. And maybe that happens to be the owner.
Yeah.
But that can be far less. And you hit the nail on the head when you were, purposely saying I. It's we.
It is we.
Hey, here's what we offer all of our employees. Here's what we do. Here's how we handle things. And that's important because that's going to get you the people you want to hire, Grant. Because if I sat on an interview and you just said I'm going to say, and that's the coach in me. I'm like, yeah. It's we. Like, am I joining a team or is this just yours?
Right. Am I becoming your personal assistant, or is there other people that actually work here? And that leads to, again, everything's such a bigger conversation, but I dislike the word employee. I love the word partner. Different in corporate, but in the home service industries, when a lot of people are paid percentage pay or piece rate, et cetera, I don't necessarily like calling them an employee because they're getting a percentage of the pie. And when they dive in and they start doing peer interviews or doing the hiring, they take a lot more pride in the business when they feel like, although they might not have an equity stake, they probably don't, and they can't just go into the company bank account. We're still partnered in this thing. All right, you want to make your 100K or 200K and raise your family, and I want to have a good net, like versus just this employee mantra of you work here for us, for we, for me, for I, all that. Talk a little bit about that contractor hiring process looks like before, and I think we just did, right? Jumbled, like who knows, last minute versus after once you're using HireBus. Yeah.
So I'll kind of just dumb this down. There's two ways that you can plug HireBus in. Way one is you say, and I jokingly say this, but you say, I love going through the resumes. I love doing the phone screens. I love all of that stuff. Well, you can plug in the right seat assessment that we've talked about there, that traits-based assessment. You can plug in our AI interview questions, our AI analyzer of resumes. You can plug those pieces in, and you can still handle everything. You can spend the money on your job boards. You can write the job ads. We have some job descriptions that you can leverage. Okay. But you still do everything. And in that case, we still are going to help you get rid of some of the gut because of that right seat assessment. That right seat assessment is still saying, hey, maybe not here on this one. If you say, Michael, I never want to touch a resume again if I don't have to. Perfect. We actually can come in and we can take over your hiring from a fractional perspective. Okay. And we write the job ads with you. We do all the ad spend. So we're going to know your market. We're going to know your industry. We're going to know, hey, we need to spend some here. We need to spend some here. We need to do some outreach here. We'll do all of that for you. You don't have to touch that. Okay. We'll build out that ideal candidate blueprint persona that I was talking about. We'll build that out with you, build you a landing page, get those questions. We'll do the assessment, or we'll have them complete the assessment. We'll do the phone screen interview. So literally once the pipeline's set up to start running, you don't touch it until final interview. Okay. And what that's going to do for you, kind of coming back to your question, in that situation, it's going to, not 100% of the time, but 90 whatever percent of the time, it's going to get you the right people at final interview. Yeah. And it's going to take far fewer interviews to get across the finish line. And that's probably the hardest talking point for us, is when somebody's like, Michael, I need 2 sales reps. Perfect. we're going to need to get you about 6 to 8 interviews, and you're going to find 2 sales reps you love. And in their brain, they're like, 6 interviews to get 2? I need like 60 interviews to get 2.
Yeah.
And so that's one of the big things is we're getting rid of things across, like we're getting rid of the junk. We're getting rid of the gut feels that you have where you're like, maybe, or that reactionary thing to where you're just like, oh, I just have to do 3 or 4 interviews. I'm going to get a hire. Life's going to be good. Obviously, another thing is sometimes it takes longer to get to a hire than you're accustomed to.
Yeah.
But I always say, Grant, how many times have you had to rehire that sales rep? Well, quite a few. Well, so you haven't actually got to the hire.
Right.
You've put people in place that maybe you thought were going to be the right hire, but if you're just still replacing that person, you actually haven't gotten to the hire. And I think that's a big thing too. You know, I love the line, hire smart, fire less. And a lot of times it's, hire slow, fire fast is the mantra. You can't hire slow because, like we talked about at the very beginning, right now in your current process, it's the world's on fire. It's reactionary. I'm hiring fast. I'm firing fast. Or if I don't have a good onboarding, they're just leaving quickly. I'm not able to retain them, and I'm just in this cyclical, problem here. Versus, hey, let's bring in, a hiring partner like HireBus. Let's spend a little bit of time. Let's map out what are we going to need, because gutter growth, you guys are talking about how are we going to go from X to Y? Well, there's a people element in that. And if you wait until the day that you need that production manager, you wait until the day you need that sales manager, well, you're already too late. And so, that's where HireBus is going to come in. We're going to help you kind of map out that hires. We'll do an audit with you. And then we'll start getting ahead of the game to where, like you were talking about, you're building a bench of talent right now for Mother's Gutters, and you're not even actively hiring, but you're building that bench of talent to where when it's time to sub someone into the game, you've got some people you can call on and hopefully, get them on board. And
if I start now, and miracles happen all the time, and it doesn't even have to be a miracle, right? But sometimes we say when we hire someone, we go, oh my gosh, that was a miracle. I've been, I'm like, yeah, you've been looking for 0 days and you started actually interviewing today. So yeah, that is a miracle that someone showed up. Yep. But if I start now, whether we call it the courting process or anything, let's just say in 3 weeks, I find the right guy, the guy I've been looking for, and he's solid. He's not broke. He has another job, but he wants to move. And so we can start talking about some of the systems and processes that we put in place. So then I decided to go buy a truck and a trailer 3 months early because the right fit is here and it's time to act now. Like, why am I waiting 6 months to get a truck and a trailer? Well, I just throw that out there because I don't have an employee. But if someone was knocking on my door every day saying, hey, I'll go work for you, which isn't the case, I would buy one sooner, right? So I'm comfortable at the moment. And, I know not to be there, so I know to start hiring. Going back really quick, just to specify, we talked about there's so many different mantras. It's like, which one is it? Hire fast, hire slow, fire slow. Do you fire at all? Do you have all these realignment meetings? Just to get your perspective on that, and there is a time to fire fast. When policy has been broken, when realignment meetings have, and this is my perspective, when realignment meetings have happened and someone's just being incorrigible, right? And they're breaking rules. I mean, yeah, it's hire fast for sure. But if you're just sitting around looking at your bottom talent constantly and trying to find the bottom talent guy, and then you fire him, well, the next guy in the line just becomes your bottom talent, and you will always have bottom talent. I like to focus on top talent and remind them what makes them top talent, at least in most places of employment, is that you bring the bottom people up with you. You make others better. And so I coach that and I discuss that from day one in interview. And I set that expectation to let people know, like specifically in the seamless gutter business, you are great, myself, at putting screws in wood while standing on ladders. Are you great at making other people great at life? Because that's what top talent is to me. So if you're at the top tier and you're really awesome with the drill, great job. Very awesome at making others great with the drill, because that's what I'm hiring. And too many people, I don't think, have that philosophy in their hiring process.
Yeah, I love that concept of, if I get rid of my bottom performer, and again, take away policy, take away all that stuff. Like if you're doing the steps to help level them up and they're just, defiantly not doing that,
that's different.
Then that's different. But I get rid of my bottom performer, I have a new bottom performer.
Every time.
I'm going to go add somebody to this team, and there's a darn good chance that they're going to start at my bottom performer. And, so I love that philosophy. And I think, too, so often I talk to contractors that they say, I want greens. I want green talent. I don't want somebody that's worked for another gutter company. I don't want somebody that's worked for another roofing company. They bring them in, and then they expect the world out of them. And it's like, wait a second. You just said you want somebody that's never done this before. So that means you better have a darn good onboarding process. You better have a darn good training process, or it's not going to work. And if you don't have those things, or you're expecting great results day one, you've got to change your philosophy. You're not going to be able to hire greens. You're going to have to go hire people that are from the industry, have done this before, and come in somewhere in the middle of the pack. But yeah, I love your concept of, hey, if I get rid of my lowest performer, I just have a new lowest performer. And most of your highest performers are probably people that have been with you the longest.
Right.
Not always. Like sometimes you have people that come in and just go right away with the ground running. But a lot of those people, like, who's your best sales rep? Steve is. He's been with me for 12 years.
Of course.
Oh, so the guy that's been with you for 3 months and not producing at Steve's level, and you're like, well, I better get rid of that guy, and let's start this process all over again. So I think just having some grace, but a lot of that comes down to, Grant, I think, the training, the onboarding. If you don't have that, and you're saying, well, I can't level people up. You might not admit that, like, hey, I don't have a training program, I don't have onboarding, I don't have this structure. But in your brain, like, hey, where they start is kind of where they stay.
And what I see pre-coaching, owning gutter growth, pre all of that, just being someone that has a lot of insight. And I have a lot of situational awareness and employment. That's what the military uses to know what's happening around you. I see very often, like, just three kind of general broad mistakes in the hiring. One, we just talked about it. So we coach someone gets HireBus, whatever, and all of a sudden they're tracking, hopefully tracking employees' improvement. And that's when they start always looking at the bottom guy because his numbers are sticking out, right? Okay, without why his numbers are sticking out. And then they're on his ass. And I'm like, well, you probably haven't even trained him properly. Because if you did, you would have caught that he was a bottom performer and you would have extended his training program to suit where he's failing. Different conversation. Number two is that when looking at putting new systems and processes in place, it's daunting to build those out. And like you said at the beginning, a lot of these people are owner operators and they want to hire like they were hired. Like, for the last 31 years, I was up on the roof, or I was slinging this concrete or whatever, and you got to be able to do it the same way as me. Your work ethic's not the same. You can't work here. Okay, well, he's not you, and we don't have 400 yous, because then we'd have a bazillion awesome people. But the biggest, most important is I've sat in on a lot of interview process, like a lot, and I've been a part of a ton. And I rarely ever see an owner actually tell a future partner or employee the vision of the company. They might, here at Mother's Gutters, we aim to please, and we're in the customer service business, yada, yada, all that crap, which means absolutely nothing to a person that's not an entrepreneur, that literally has no money in the bank and they just knocked up their girlfriend and they're like, how am I going to pay my bills? That's a very weak vision versus, hey, here at Mother's Gutters, true, we aim to please, but I want to get personal with you. I'd like to be involved in your life. I'd like people here to succeed. And I want to give you some examples of what the vision of the company is. We're currently doing $2.4 million, but we're projected to be doing $8 million in the next 2 years. And here's how you'll fit into that role. And here's the way that you can advance and really become a part of this fam, yada, 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 yada. No one's doing that. They're giving the weak BS of like, here we aim to please and we love our employees. I'm like, I bet you do. All three that you've got, I guarantee you love them.
You hit the nail on the head. You said two things. You said the same way we've been doing this for 31 years.
Right.
And we've got to realize that times are changing. But then the other piece is when you're talking about like you've got to be involved in their lives. You got to care about them. You've got to know. Yeah, tell them like what you talked about there of like, hey, what's our mission? What's our goals? Ask them, what do you need? Because so often I hear contractors say, or business owners say, nobody wants to work anymore. They want all this money. It's money, money, money. They left for more money. When in reality, our current like new like working class, money's a piece. You've got to be able to pay the bills. We all know that.
Yep.
They are so big on the team and the culture and those kind of things. And if you can't paint that picture, they're not going to want to come work for you, even if it is for more money than somewhere else. You know, it's like, 100%. Hey, every Friday we have lunch together, or, you know, I'm going to throw Nick Slavic. He's in the painting space. I don't know if you know Nick, but they've got work from home Fridays and they've got like a 4-day work week and all these things. And he's one of the most successful painters and educators, and the guy's running an amazing business. So it's like, you know, you do some of these things from like a building of a team and a culture and those kind of things. And the 31-year guys are like, great, you can't do that. We've worked 6 days a week for the last 40 years, and that's what we're gonna do. And maybe it's 4 days a week for 11-hour days or 12-hour days or whatever you need to do to get your work done.
100%.
And I'm not saying you have to go to 4-day work weeks, but I'm just saying
4-day work weeks, by the way, I'm completely on board with that. I think it's the newest thing that's coming 1,000%. I 1,000, and that will be something that will most likely be happening at Mother's, because you made a very valid point that the new generation is a new generation, and it's not 45 to 65-year-olds looking for the old style in the home service business. These children are brought up with more participation awards, more hugs, less discipline, right? And we just have to be aware of our surroundings, that there's young people out there, green people that are looking to work, but there's a bunch of things on the table. Making $1,000 isn't anything anymore, unfortunately. You know, and so you have to, when you're interviewing, and this podcast is about hiring, so this is why this is relevant. You have to ask people what you need, but more specifically, when you talked about the culture, having a boss that says how we did things 31 years ago every single day isn't going to be as effective as having what we talked about, that round table, even if you're a 7-person company, having 2 people at the table, because that is the beginning of culture versus this one-way interview, just you and the owner, how things, all the rules and regulations of how things are done here, all the things the company will need from you, and then we'll think about it and we'll give you a call back.
Absolutely.
Versus an interactive conversation with other employees that are catching vibes and smiles, or not having that, and then they're being you've got to start to really treat the business almost like a family these days, because that's what people are looking for. They're so nervous and they're so tired of having these dead end jobs and these broken promises. And hey, we're going to do 10 million a year, and you're really going to win over here. Starting pay is 38,000. Wait, what? I heard 10 million in winning. Where does 38,000 starting coming into play? Right? Like, I don't need 38K. I need 38K a quarter, right? So
yeah. Well, I mean, you know, I think back to like my parents, and my parents were extremely hardworking. I live in the Midwest. Both, I don't know exactly how many years, but they probably worked that same, not even in the same space, but the exact same job, you know, and they were very successful. My mom came from the medical field. My dad was a high school principal, but probably 30 years, same exact employer. And the times are changing. Like if you don't give your people a place where they are excited to come to work every single day, they're going to go find something else. And it's, like I said, it's a competitive landscape. It's like you said, money's just a piece of it. Like, you've got to hit the number. It's got to be exciting. But then it's like all these other little things. And like the Friday idea, start small. Maybe it's, maybe it's a cycle where a certain group gets one Friday a month off.
Yes,
or it's
exactly.
it's like, hey, we call it Family Friday or Laundry Fridays or whatever.
Yeah.
And so like, John, Steve, and Joey get this Friday, and then it rotates. But we still always have lunch every Friday. And I promise you, and this came from Company Cam when I was there, every Friday they have lunch. You'd be amazed how many
people are still coming in from off work to have. Yeah.
Oh, or even the hybrid people, the people that were 99% of the time working remote, they're coming in on Friday. But what's that do? That gets everybody together and everybody's talking, and we're, maybe we're not even talking about work, but we're enjoying where we work, and that's super important. So I think, not to like tangent off on the hiring, but your culture is probably the most important piece to successful hiring, because hey, at HireBus, we can get you great people. We can't keep them for you.
Yes.
Like, that's still on you.
Yeah. What does the future of hiring in the trades look like? And what do you think the smart business owners are going to do today to stay ahead?
Get HireBus. I mean,
No, sure.
you could get HireBus, but
get HireBus. So let's dive into that really quick to wrap this up. What does getting HireBus look like? Let's do a 3-minute.
Yeah.
Grant just got HireBus. What's going to make my eyes light up right away and make me excited about this?
For sure. So no, I'll kind of answer your other question too at the same time here. The future of hiring is getting to where you are proactively hiring and you're doing it quickly. You're treating every applicant that you have in your business like you would that dream job you have. Because every contractor, no matter what trade they're in, has that dream job, and I roofers are my favorite to talk to, because it's either a multifamily or it's a huge commercial flat roof. Those are the dream jobs for roofing contractors, and they are on top of it. They don't let anything slip through the cracks. The future of hiring is treating your candidates that same way, not waiting 48 hours after they applied to give them a call, those kind of things. And that's what's going to make your eyes light up when it comes to getting HireBus in your business. Is HireBus takes care of all of that. You don't have to worry about an applicant slipping through the cracks. You don't have to worry about, my gut says no, but I need them. I'm proactive. I'm building, back to that bench of talent. I'm building a bench of talent so that when I do need a sales rep, or when I find a rock star sales rep, I interview them and I bring them onto the team, and I'm staying ahead of the curve. And so I think that's the thing with HireBus. You're going to save so much time, so many headaches. We are calling it 3.0 coming, and it'll be out sometime here summer of 25. So if you're in 2027 and you're listening to this podcast, it's out. But it's 3.0 is going to be able to take a candidate from the application stage through an AI phone screen interview. It won't be the final interview, but it'll make sure that candidate checks all your boxes.
Yeah.
In 25 minutes.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing that right now. We're not doing that right now. Like, we're still, on top of everything. We're not letting things slip through the cracks, but 25 minutes, or we're going to have that candidate from application to initial phone screen.
Yeah.
And what that does is that gives that candidate a deep breath.
Yeah.
This might be the one. I don't need to be out searching for more jobs. And so I think that's where HireBus is really going to be, a game changer for blue collar contractors. Is we're going to help make sure we get you the right people into your pipeline quicker, faster, easier. Because what I can tell you is the market's only going to get more and more competitive. The future of hiring in home services is going to get more and more competitive.
Yeah.
And you've got to make sure that you have the process, in HireBus's case, the software in place to compete with everyone else out there.
I'm going to let you plug HireBus and tell people how to find you. I just wanted to say something here about the dictionary definition. There's two of them of hire. And I think this is kind of hilarious because there is two ways to hire. And the American, I guess I would say, verb definition of hire, Michael, is to employ someone for wages. And then there's the British, no offense to you, any Brits listening, but wow, this is the other definition of hiring. To obtain the temporary use of something for an agreed payment. And I think a lot of people are hiring the second way because they aren't keeping them very long because they're not doing it the right way. So maybe not that the first one is extremely defined, but employing someone, ing, verb, meaning keeping them employed for wages versus maybe what you're doing, hiring for the temporary use. You just don't know it's temporary. And how can people stop doing that? Where can they find you? How can they reach out to HireBus?
Yep, absolutely. So reach out to HireBus. You can hit us up at hirebus.com/guttergrowth.
Okay.
That way we'll know you came from the podcast, and we're going to take good care of everybody, but we'll take a little extra good care of you. We're still in the small enough stage that I'll give you my personal email is michael@hirebus.com. So if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't know if I'm ready for that hiring audit, because that's what I would have you do is go to hirebus.com/guttergrowth.
Okay.
And do a hiring audit. No, not even necessarily a product demo at that point. Just do an audit with our team. We have hiring specialists that can kind of help you get out of reactive and into proactive hiring. But if you're like, hey, Michael, I just need some job description help, or I need some wage ideas.
Awesome.
Michael@hirebus.com. Shoot me an email. I would be happy to chat through some of those things with you. And, coming from the tech space, I've been in it for a while. I've worked with a ton of contractors. I've seen the cultures that are awesome, and I've seen the cultures that make hiring really difficult. So even if you just want to have a conversation on like, hey, what are these guys doing from a culture standpoint to win? Happy to do that. So Michael@hirebus.com, hirebus.com/guttergrowth. Either way, get a hold of us and we'll take care of you.
Love it, Michael. Thank you so much for being on with us today. I look forward to chatting with you again. We can do this more often. You guys, he just gave you an invitation to just start to network with him and feel him out. I think that's outstanding because a lot of people are going to be listening and going, I don't know. Call him, pick his brain, reach out, send him an email, say, what does this look like? Educate yourself so that you can be a better educator of what you and your company have to offer. Michael, thank you so much.
Absolutely. I appreciate it, Grant.